Nord Stream 2 takes some heavy damage from an underwater explosion. 12 to 24 hours later, same thing happens to the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. I'm going to discuss this and the implications and what this all means today. I'm Laoch, and this is Laoch's When the Hammer Drops. All right, folks. So if you're living underneath a rock, then you haven't heard about what's going on with Nord Stream 1 and 2. So I'm here to bring that to you. I'm going to let you know what's actually going on, what you're not going to hear in the mainstream media, because, they don't want you to know. I'm going to give you a third-party perspective that will actually help you try to think about it. Maybe be like, that's a possibility. It's not a conspiracy. It's nothing like that. This is actual stuff that I saw. And, basically at the end of the show, you're going to understand who has more to gain than the other for the pipeline going down. So was it Sabotage that actually did this? Well, some people would like to believe that it's not, but I don't know of many underwater explosions that isn't considered sabotage, but this is also, I would consider, an act of terrorism. Because let's first start off with the implications of what is going to happen now that Nord Stream 1 and 2 are down. Well, those are the main pipelines that go into Germany, which feed all of Europe their natural gas. Now, it's not just a month or two to fix the damages done. Now, Nord Stream 2 was just under pressure, so that's not whatever. But Nord Stream 1 is the one that actually is having natural gas go through it. Now, that one's had multiple, a lot of damage to it. So, yeah, it's not going to take a month. They're saying multiple months, maybe years just to fix this. Now, let me put this into perspective. If that is... and the pipeline that goes through Ukraine are the only ones that bring gas to Europe, this is a huge problem. Winter is coming. The citizens of all over Europe are going to be suffering very, very badly because of this. You're talking no gas, no heat. This is huge. So now what would it take for something like this to happen? Well, first and foremost, you need the technology to be able to make it happen. Now, I know back in, June? They were running the Baltic 22 maneuvers in the Baltic Sea with the U.S. and coalition forces like Finland and Sweden and all that. So I know the propaganda is going to be popping off all over the place saying that the U.S. is over here doing this along with Finland and Sweden. And so fingers are going to be pointed. Okay. You got to look beyond that. You got to look beyond what the mainstream media is going to be telling you. And the reason why I say that is because it's all, if you don't know what a PSYOP is, look it up. It's all basically training the way you think. So they're going to beat this in. They do it. They've done PSYOPs all since World War I, even before that, to be honest with you, where, they drop pamphlets and all this stuff during the wars and get people to surrender. This is kind of what's going to happen is kind of the same thing. They're going to try to pull some PSYOPs that is going to try to point the fingers over in somebody else's direction to deflect blame. But you know what? Don't believe that, because you got to look at all the facts. Fact number one is what countries actually have the technology to do this, because a diver's not going to dive into the water and swim down to this pipeline and set charges in multiple spots and essentially do it that way. There's just no way. So you can take that right off take that right off the board. Then you have to look at countries that actually have the means to be able to do this. The submarines, the underwater drones, stuff like that. Countries like that, U.S., United States of America has that, and so does Russia. So, okay, we got two countries right there that have the technology. Germany has the technology as well. Okay, so now that's three. Now, what about France and Great Britain, England, all them? All of them have the technology, but what you need to understand is, what are they going to gain from doing this? Okay. So let's start off with Russia, because everybody's going to point fingers at Russia, that Russia sabotaged their own pipeline and blew it up and all that. And I'm not by any means sticking up for Putin or Russia. So I just want to get that right there. I'm bringing you the facts. And hopefully this will help. Maybe you can put this all in perspective and actually, that's what I want you to do, is put this in perspective and think about this. Because Russia, they have the means to be able to do this. They truly do. They have the means, but do they have the desire to do it? Why would they do it? Why would Russia sabotage their own pipeline when they have the shutoff valve in their country? They can righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. They can turn it on, turn it off. Turn it on, turn it off. You see where I'm going? So why would they want to sabotage their own pipeline? Number one. So there's really no motivation for Russia to do it. So, okay, now let's go on to Ukraine here. Ukraine, do they have the motivation to do it? Yes. But do they have the means to do so? No, they do not. So Ukraine doesn't have the means to be able to do this right now. But what you need to remember about Ukraine is that there is a pipeline that does go through Ukraine that comes from Russia, that the Ukrainian army, and ordered by the president over there, they shut that down early on. That they shut down that pipeline. That pipeline also feeds Europe. So that pipeline was shut down by the Ukrainian armies. So remember that, because they're going to try telling you that, again, Putin did that it wasn't Ukraine, but Ukraine actually shut that down in the beginning of the war. And they kind of did that to kind of like F you Russia type shit, So that's why they kind of did that. So with that being said, they don't have the technology, they don't have the subs, they don't have and they don't have the underwater drones. So Ukraine's kind of off the table. Now, that brings me to, let's start talking about some of the other countries in Europe. France, no. Why would France do it? France, they don't really have that much. England, same kind of thing. Really, they have the technology to do it, but why would they? Because they need that gas for heat for all their citizens, because for their population, because that's where they get their natural gas from. So, and then you have, think of all the other countries that are over in that area. A lot of those other countries don't have the technology and again, don't want to do it, because, that's like shooting themselves in the foot. Like, why would you want to shoot yourself in the foot when you need to, you're coming into winter and you need that natural gas to be able to heat so you can stay alive, so you can cook, so you can do all that stuff. You can cook up, with wood and all that stuff, stay warm with wood, but eventually you keep with the millions and millions of people that live over in Europe. I don't think trees are going to last very long, if you ask me, if that keeps going. So, so now let me talk to you. Now, what about Germany? I know I didn't touch base on with Germany. Now, Germany has, by all means, they have the technology to do this. They have the subs, they have everything. But the question is, do they have the will to do it? No. Why would they? Because Germany has already said that they want to cut ties with Russia when it comes to natural gas and all that stuff. And their whole government was in agreement to it. So again, right there, why would Germany even bat an eye at this? Why would they want to do it? So that brings me to good old the USA. Would America do this? Would our president and chief and the commanding officer of our military do this? Well, I don't know if you all remember the video or the speech that he gave about Nord Stream just a couple days prior?
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
But how will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Okay, now that you've heard the audio from Biden, basically saying a few days prior to all this happening that, yeah, we can shut down Nord Stream 2. No problem. Just take my word for it. I mean, you heard it right there. So now you have to look at it like this. All the fingers have got to be pointed at us because our leader went and said that. It's like, I know there's been questions about Dementia Joe's mindset. But this is just, if we actually did it and they can prove that we did this, that's an act of terrorism. What the hell was Biden thinking? But, that's for a different time if that is what happens. So now let's get into what does the U.S. Does the U.S. have the capabilities of doing this? Number one. And do we have the motivation to do it? The answer to both of those questions is an astounding yes. We have underwater drones that can carry a payload of explosives to place in certain areas. We have submarines to do this as well. Do we have the motivation to do it? Like I said, yes. What would our motivation be for us to do this? Well, I think the number one motivation is if we if America sabotaged those pipelines and fingers get pointed at Russia, it just gets everybody in that area just so angry with Russia for doing this. It's a false flag. And then here we are, we can rush in and save the day, right? Is that what they're looking for? Is this a false flag event that they were looking for to, the whole change in narrative? That's a possibility. We can't take that off the table. But here's the thing. What other reasons would we possibly want to do this for? Well, one reason would be is because now that we've taken the one bargaining chip off the table, which is those two pipelines, now we don't have to worry about Germany, England, France, or any other countries negotiating with Russia at all. So we've taken that bargaining chip completely off the table because now for those pipelines to be fixed, we're talking months to years for those pipelines to be fixed, because what has happened now, you have these pipelines exploded. Okay. You figure, they explode. You can just fix it. No, because now all that salt water went into the pipelines. You have salt water. You got these holes in there. It's basically the whole pipeline is just filled with salt water. Everything is compromised. So that's a huge aspect of it. So you got to look at that. So what does that mean? Well, it's basically essentially by those two pipelines going down is essentially pretty much going to kill the European economy. There's just no ifs, ands, buts about it now. And I've always said this, look what's going on over in Europe, okay? And within a few months, you'll start seeing that happening here. And the reason why I say that is because I'm going to put this in a perspective for you. Because those gas pipelines are down. All of Europe doesn't have gas. And like I said earlier, Ukraine shut down the other gas line that went through Ukraine. And they're obviously not turning that back on because that's like an FU to Putin. So take that off the table too. Okay. Because Ukraine, now if it is America that's doing it, Ukraine is in the back pocket of America. Just like, and it's weird that if Joe Biden and his handlers decided to do this, I'm not going to say America because that's just not right, because American citizens, me, you, and whoever else is listening to this, we didn't want this. This is all on our politicians and, our president. So if they decided that this is what they wanted to do, well, it's bad, because if they're doing this to their allies, now Germany and all these other countries, like, our politicians basically say jump, they pretty much say how high, and they've been doing everything that's been asked of them by our government. So, I mean, why would they want to do this? I mean, to make the Europeans suffer? I mean, because that's essentially what's going to happen, because you're taking away the gas. So no gas essentially is going to be no electricity, because you have nuclear plants that are being shut down right now that are producing electricity. So take that off the table. And without those, now you got no fertilizer. And without fertilizer, you ain't got no food. And with no food, you got no heat. So it's essentially, you're going to be, everybody, the people in Europe, I feel so bad for them, because they're all going to be suffering because of this action. This has a huge domino effect. And if this is, it's pretty soon, I mean, eventually they're going to figure out who sabotaged it, and whoever sabotaged it is going to be, there's going to be hell to pay for it. And I'm really hoping that it's not our politicians, pulling this kind of crap. But again, I wouldn't put it past our politicians. Now, on the other flip side, I mean, is this a false flag event? Is this something that it was needed by the World Economic Forum or the WEF? I mean, is this something that's been planned so we can usher in the, Agenda 2030? I mean, there's a lot of things on the table here. You see where I'm going with this? But ultimately, this is not a good thing. I know that in Italy just elected a right-wing candidate that has close ties with Putin. So they're going to be negotiating things with, Putin and Russia to do whatever they can for their citizens to get heat to them. So, I mean, they didn't completely take out everything, but I don't know. I mean, because those two pipelines, I haven't really looked at all the pipelines in, Europe. As far as I know, Nord Stream 1 and 2 are the main ones that provide our gas and, your natural gases for all the countries over there. And those are now completely down. So again, I want you to think about this. Russia has the means. They have, the complete ability to be able to do this, but why would they, when all they have to do is just shut the valve off and not damage any of that pipeline, because that's money. Money flowing through those pipelines, and now it's completely gone. So would Russia do it? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I do say it was sabotaged. I definitely think it is an act of terrorism, whether it's by Putin and was doing it himself, or if it's whatever other country that did it. It is an act of terrorism, and whoever did it should be held accountable and pay the ultimate price. Just hopefully it's not our commander in chief, because he's a bumbling idiot, and I can honestly see him doing it, especially after his comments. So with that said, I think that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it at for this episode. Definitely, if you can help me out here, the algorithms have changed with the podcasts. So if you can go to, Spotify, Apple, stuff like that, give me 5 stars, give me a review. This is going to help me move up the charts and get this out to more listeners. I will provide the links below. Follow me on all of our social medias. I'll have all the links in the box below. Thank you guys, and we'll see you here in a couple more days.